Welcome to the show, everybody. We're excited today to bring on Chris Senkbile, and he is a VP and shareholder at UNICO and the founder and CEO of Pharaoh, which is an insurtech company that we're really excited to talk about today. So we're going to bring his experience in the industry and then why he created Pharaoh and just kind of have a general conversation about insurtech and where that's at in the industry as a whole. So it's going to be a really fun conversation and hope everybody enjoys.
Welcome to the Getting Past the Premium podcast, where we focus on breaking down risk management problems bit by bit until we find a solution. If you would like to discuss anything you hear on GPP with us, please reach out using the links in the description. Enjoy today's episode.
Thanks for coming on, dude.
Yeah, welcome, man.
Thanks for having me.
It's going to be a fun one.
Can't wait.
Yeah, so
let's nerd out on some insurance.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be good. So quick, give everybody the who you are and quick history of, because you're in the industry, you've got some insurtech background. I'll maybe walk through that a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm a farm boy, Nebraska native, and ended up in Omaha in 2006. I've pretty much been in Omaha ever since, and started working with UNICO coming up on 8 years ago now, and just fell in love with the industry, and but also saw a lot of opportunity for change and progress. And so during that time, you go out and start talking to clients and trying to understand, hey, like what works for you about this process and what doesn't work for you. And oftentimes they're pretty willing to give you solid feedback, right? Mm-hmm. And not always positive, but it was helpful because you're trying to identify, like, hey, how do we, all these things we talked about, right? How do we serve you better? How do we make this experience better for you? And in so doing, how do we make the experience better for us at the brokerage, right? And improve things. So that was really kind of the foundation for the idea for Pharaoh, was just based off of client feedback, going out and talking with them and figuring out areas where we could serve them better. And so that's kind of what got the ball rolling on that. And then, you start thinking about, and you guys have kind of gone through this journey with launch, you start thinking about, okay, what's step number one towards actually doing something, right?
I get this idea.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm famous for I got an idea. Don't know if it's a good one.
But I have about $1 million idea. At least I tell my wife every day, but few are executed on. But so you get started on the process though, and just trying to figure it out. And for me, the first step was, here's what I'm hearing. Is there anything out there right now in the marketplace, insurtech or other brokerages, right, that are using something that we should be using that address these? And as you go out and start looking around, we didn't really identify anything that quite solved kind of what we were looking to solve for. So that was step one. Step two is, all right, we got to find somebody who can actually help us execute this, this vision. And we were fortunate enough to get plugged in with the Omaha Startup Collaborative, and they kind of coached us through how to get from A to Z. And I think we're probably somewhere around P right now on the alphabet, but we're working through it little by little. So
that's step by step, right?
Yep.
So what is Pharaoh from a high level?
Yeah. So ultimately, it's a client platform. So we really wanted to, looking at the industry, we kind of stepped back and said, okay, if we're going to create a client platform, what's the easiest path of least resistance to do that and do that well, considering integrations and legacy systems like agency management systems that can
my
be
favorite topic.
Source of frustration for people in terms of just data, right? Yeah. It's tough to get data in and out and help, use it the way you want to use it.
Oh.
Yeah. Not very much, but a little bit.
Yeah.
So that, so really for us, that was it, is we want to create a client platform. And we want that platform to actually represent ownership of the process to the client, right, to the policyholder. So a little bit different take, I think, than some of the existing insurtechs out there that were a lot of broker-focused solutions or insurance company-focused solutions. We said, what would it look like for us to actually create a client-focused solution that actually allows the rest of the industry to come together surrounding or aligning around the client. And so that was really I think the differentiator for us is just a little bit of a philosophical difference to who owns the data, basically, because I think brokerages kind of sometimes think, gosh, we own the data. It's like, no, we don't. It's the client's information. That's all their data. I think insurance companies are, to some degree guilty of the same thing, which is, hey, this is our data, right? We're underwriting it, we control it, we process it. And so the philosophical approach to having a client take ownership and control that, I think empowers the rest of the industry to actually do their jobs more efficiently and better, because you're actually getting a source of truth or an endpoint for data to flow. And so I always use this analogy. I don't know if it's a good one or not, but you think about fragmentation.
Elliot will tell you.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, I'm open to feedback.
I'm usually pretty honest.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I tend to be too, which gets me into trouble at times, but that's okay. But you look at the industry and you think, okay, there's a lot of insurance companies, and they all have their own silos. Some of the insurance companies have 37 business units within the company itself.
And 37 companies.
Yeah, you nailed it. And they all have their own tech, their own way of doing things. They may have a self-service or client portal to some degree, but that just ends up in being a fairly non-integrated or dysfunctional kind of solution to the client, because as you guys know, a lot of clients have 3, 4, 5, 6 different insurance companies they might be working with depending on lines of coverage. So now you've got 3 or 4 different portals you're logging into, so you don't really get an integrated approach there. And the same with the brokerage. We're all fairly fragmented in the way we kind of approach and do things too, or use the information. And so we thought, gosh, clients really represent kind of the most homogeneous group in that ecosystem. Everybody's talking about ecosystems or open insurance or whatever it is, and we looked at the client and said, that's the most homogeneous group. If we actually created a solution that the rest of the industry could align around that group, we could actually take, instead of kind of having this really kind of fragmented, just a bunch of blips on the radar, we could actually take it and make it a linear process, right? Where that information flows from that endpoint or that source of truth across the industry, wherever it needs to go, to us at the brokerage or insurance companies or other insurtechs for that matter. And that was really the foundation for what we started out with the idea.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a hell of a step just from the perspective of you're focusing on the end user and the client, which doesn't really happen in this industry. Like all the tools are centered around, brokers and insurance companies and competing on some of the same stuff, but not really focusing on who's actually buying this stuff and how can we make their life better.
Yep.
Well, a couple things that popped in my head as you were talking there too is, originally insurtech comes out as the death of the independent agent. That was the whole thing. Everybody's scared, right?
Yep.
And I think that, not that we talk a lot, we shouldn't be naive enough to think that if we don't continue to evolve,
correct,
that's not going to get good enough to probably replace us. But much of then the insurtech has shifted to support of brokers and independent agents and such. But where I think something you said there that's interesting that I agree with is you said the philosophical approach, which I think with tech and tools in general is the most important piece.
Yep.
Like, what are we trying to solve first? What's the problem? What's the what could we gain if we could solve this particular piece of the puzzle? And then go out and figure out what's going to help solve that. In your case, you're building it, right? Yep. But I think too many people get into the shiny object syndrome, or we're all guilty of it. I mean, we've implemented many of things that were shiny objects that we thought, would be great, but didn't start from that. What do we need to accomplish? And then taking it a step further and saying, not what's good for us, but at the end of the day, what's going to be good for our clients.
Yep.
And that's, again, another philosophical shift that I think you guys put on it, that ultimately, at the end of the day, if we do good by our clients, we're going to do just fine. We're going to get more clients, they're going to be happier, referrals, all of that stuff that goes into it. So I think that's just a couple of takeaways because I want to get your perspective on other insurtechs. I know you keep a good pulse on that's out there. But I think that the belief or the way that I view insurtech is it needs to give us the ability as humans operating in the business to be able to work with our clients more effectively. So Ryan has said it 1,000 times. Automate and put the tech in for the crap that doesn't impact the client experience. And let us drive the client experience and be involved in it. So maybe just your perspective on that, how Pharaoh kind of fits in, and then what you're seeing out there. InsurTech in general.
Well, I think you nailed it. You look at early InsurTech, and I think it was kind of a pucker factor for brokers, right? Like, oh my gosh, we're going to get kind of wedged out of this thing. And I think what got reiterated over time is clients still very much value a trusted partner, an advisor, right?
Advice,
and they want somebody who knows how to place coverage, limits, deductibles, and coach them through that process. Because they're running a business, right? And I think the millennial generation, I think a lot of folks are wired to, hey, well, I can go out and be my own financial advisor, or I can be my own insurance advisor, or I can do all these things. And I think what got reiterated is clients still want somebody to coach them through it. And so you look at analogous platforms, right? Like a TurboTax. Okay, well, that allows me to do my own taxes, but I'm not doing it alone. There's an advisor, there's a coaching component to that. And I think with Pharaoh, launch very much the same way. It's, hey, tech can actually help that relationship be better, right? We can actually deploy tech to allow us to have even better, stronger relationships. It's not about disintermediating the broker and getting them out of the equation. It's actually, hey, let's spend less time doing the things none of us like to do, gathering,
strengthen that relationship,
and spend it on advising and actually getting to know the business. So that totally agree with you there. And I think from the rest of the insurtech landscape, the marketplace, one thing is that's really started to resonate with me as we've gone through this journey of just discovery and learning of building something is. There are just as fragmented as the broker and insurer marketplace is, the insurtech space is the same. Yeah. There's just a ton of solutions.
It's almost getting worse to some degree.
It is, and like you said, it's all over. Shiny, right? There's all these great solutions, but they're kind of one-point solutions, right? And so how do you take all these really cool solutions and create an integrated or bundled experience for a client, right? Really hard to do when there's 1,000 of them. And so you might end up with a client who has 30 different logins for all the great resources you're helping to provide for them. So one of the things that's really started to resonate with me is this concept of a client tech stack, right? We talk about our tech stack at the brokerage all the time. Okay, what are we using for CRM and AMS and on and on and on? What would it look like for us to actually step back and think about a client tech stack? And if you think about it, again, going back to the philosophical approach, if we align all those solutions around the client, and many of those solutions are very collaborative in nature, Launches, Pharaoh is, and many, many others, now we have the ability to actually collaborate with the client around those solutions, right? And so part of, one of the undertones with Pharaoh that we're really interested in exploring more as we get more traction is how do we help bundle all those different insurtech solutions into one sort of integrated solution for the client so they can access all these great options, great solutions that exist out there, but kind of have that one entry point, right? That TurboTax or that Intuit sort of experience for a small business or businesses in general. So
when you say you're taking a look at client tech stack, like, is it in regard to the risk management industry, or are you evaluating all of the technology that a client that you would be targeting would have? Because I think that could go down an interesting path.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think first and foremost, surrounding risk management related. But I think what gets really interesting, and as we go out and talk with clients, again, they're always willing to give you feedback. We hear a lot of suggestions, right? Well, hey, actually, it would be really nice if our asset tracking software that we use could integrate with our insurance schedules somehow, right? Like that'd be really nice, because now from a client perspective, they're like, well, I have my all my accounting, depreciation schedules, asset tracking over here. But then I have to have a separate list for those same things for insurance. Like that, to them, it's like that doesn't make any sense, right? Like, why can't we integrate those? So
it should be one source of truth.
Yeah. So I don't know what that looks like other than talking about integrations and things like that on non-risk management related. But if you think about it, an entire everything at a client's location is ultimately risk management related in some, because it can present a risk or an exposure or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, and Pharaoh's got a little bit of that built in. I mean, it's from the insurance perspective, but it keeps it up to date and all of that stuff, which is funny. That's how, I mean, we've been talking for a long time, but that's how we really got back into it, was because literally we were solving this problem with third-party crap all over the place.
Yep.
And then you and I are like, oh, yeah, let's get back together and chat. And it was like, oh, this is what we were trying to build. So perfect. I'll let you do the legwork on that. Because that's it. I mean, we have to have these things, but there's multiple sources of truth. Like, which one is the client going to keep the most up to date? And at the end of the day, there's no reason it shouldn't be the one that we have to keep up to date as well in some form or fashion.
Yep.
May not be the same as depreciation lists or whatever, but, I think there's a degree of that. But you were going to say something.
No, I just, I start to think about when you were saying evaluating things through the client's eyes, particularly their tech stack, and it started to get me thinking around how even that conversation changes on the advisory side, because the same thing's true, right? Most clients aren't looking for 13 different people to handle all of their issues.
Yep.
Right? And you said it. Risk is at the bottom of the pyramid with every single one of those.
Yep.
Not having a plan to exit the business is a risk. And paying too much in taxes if you have a crappy accountant is a risk. And on and we can keep going. But having the ability to evaluate that holistically, pairing that with something that gave them a view to look through holistically and to help integrate and take that their experience to another level is crazy.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's kind of two paths with insurtech. There's those that, and you and I've had some conversations on this, but there's those that want to plow their own path, right? No, don't really want to integrate. We're better than you, and is what it is. See you later. And then there's others that are very much open source, saying, we believe in abundance thinking. We believe that we can come together and create something much better than any one of us is going to create on our own, which is how we kind of look at launch. And I know you look at Pharaoh, and I think that's very important. And again, there's nothing wrong with, I guess, those that want to plow their own path. But if we're really thinking about what is best for our clients, viewing it from that angle, it's going to take many different, systems talking and working together versus that fragmented approach. Right? And what are you kind of seeing out there, I guess, maybe from that angle? Are most plowing their own path, or are most looking to...
my perspective is early insurtech was very much, hey, we're gonna disrupt an industry. We're gonna do it on our own. And the observation I've had, and we're in a lot of partnership discussions with existing solutions out there, because again, abundance thinking, we don't want to recreate the wheel on really fantastic solutions that already exist. Most of them are very open to the discussion of, hey, what's it look like to have a partnership? How do we ultimately, one, improve the industry, right, for the better overall, but ultimately, how do we actually serve the client best? And I think most that I've had the pleasure of speaking with are very much open to, hey, we get it. This has to ultimately serve the client, and anything we can do to do that better, we're willing to explore and look at. So that's been encouraging as we've gotten further into this. Because you don't know what you're going to get until you start having those conversations. And I think, again, we've been very pleased with the response from a lot of those existing solutions out there. So that's good. And, the trick is, again, it's data. And how do you get data from A to B? And especially when you've got as many solutions that exist, that becomes kind of an overwhelming thing. So our approach has been, okay, let's really create a focus on what we think drives the most value for the client and focus there first, right? Mm-hmm. So we're biased. We think Pharaoh provides a lot of value for the client, but then what's that next thing that we think we could layer in that provides the, the next immediate, relief or immediate value? And then that's where we focus. Mm-hmm. And so we just kind of have a roadmap of, hey, we want to partner here first. Then this is the next one on the list, and just keep moving down until you really are able to provide a client with that full bundled kind of suite of solutions, if you will.
Well, and I think that there's an opportunity, like in the past, the legacy systems just owned everything. There was no other opportunity, and it still is to a degree because it's so expensive on the legacy systems that it's very difficult to go out and it's just from a sheer investment perspective, it's difficult. It's difficult to make the change monetarily, all the stuff. Yeah. I think once you get to making a change and that's done, agencies that have done it, and a lot of them now are piecing together those solutions. So rather than rely on applied systems to build your, your front end CRM, which doesn't exist applied, your back end document management, your certificate management, all the stuff, it's saying we can piece those out and bring in and evaluate each area, again, thinking about what do we need to accomplish first, and then bring in the right tool and, like you said, create that linear approach to it. And again, this is on the agency side, but it should ultimately be looked at. What of those things allows us to provide the most value back to our client? Yep. And again, that's probably the piece that's missed a lot, because we talk internally, and it's hard to make sure that we check ourselves on that it's client experience has got to be thought of first. Yep. Not necessarily just this makes it a little quicker for us because the client doesn't give a crap. Yep. Yep. And ultimately, sometimes maybe those things make it worse for the client because we're asking the client to do more, or that's the worst thing you can do.
And I think the agency management systems, that's a trick, right? Is one, that's what they are. They're not client management systems. They're agency management systems. They're designed to manage.
That's a great way to put it. I haven't heard that terminology before.
It's kind of funny because it's a nuance, right? It's a philosophy, but it's true because they're not and never were designed to really create a great experience for the client. They were designed to create a great experience for the brokerage.
Well, not maybe great. Yeah. They're designed to get a few things accomplished.
I mean, if we're going to be generous, going to be generous here, but I think that's where what's interesting is as brokerages identify that nuance, right? Oh yeah, this isn't really for the client. We got to figure out the client side ourselves. What the legacy AMS systems, the struggle there is, one, as you said, the cost. But then once you have some cool solutions that you want to deploy for a client, you got to figure out what the cost to actually get to use the data that's already in your agency management system is, because you're going to get charged to be able to access it and use it how you want. And that's another prohibitive. It's not an abundance mentality. It's a prohibitive approach to saying, well, no, all that data, it's staying in this system, and it's going to be really hard for you to get it out. And if you can, we're going to charge you a lot for it. And so I think a lot
on top of what we're already charging you a lot to do.
Yeah, on top of it. Yeah.
You can tell my opinion on all these legacy systems.
I'll tell you, as we go out and start pushing Pharaoh to the brokerage marketplace, the conversations we have with brokerages across the country are everyone's in the same boat. Yeah. They're trying to figure out.
It's simply a lack of a better option.
Yep.
That's it. Yep. Which is
it's lack of a better option, but I think it's also lack of understanding about how to get there.
It's a daunting task.
It's daunting. That's well stated.
But mainly because they're handcuffed. It's not because the new solution is sweet. It's that it's
getting from A to B.
Yeah.
100%. They're handcuffed. I think handcuffed is well stated.
Totally. I mean, and the other thing I would encourage everybody to think about, because this is a shift in thinking too. I mean, the legacy systems essentially took old processes that we utilized prior to having an agency management system and just digitized it.
Yep.
That's it. They didn't think about how we could do it differently because we have technology. It was like, let's just digitize what we're already doing. And if you actually sit down and think about how you walk through whatever process in Applied or Vertafore or whatever it is, or AMS 360, that's exactly what happens. But the problem is, because of that, agencies haven't ever typically thought outside the box. I know many have, don't get me wrong, but it's very easy to get caught in that trap. You have to do it the way that the system makes you do it.
Yep.
And so in order to pull out of that and insert something else is that daunting task, because you have to pull yourself out of basically the way they're trying to tell you to do it, the way you've always done it, and start to really boil it down to the base level or base steps of the process and start to think about how you could change it. And it is daunting. And then you throw in the handcuffs and just all of the crap.
The fact that like there's accounting systems looped in there, is crazy. And then you've got the scary tax situation. It's like, well, my accounting's off. And then I'm dealing with the IRS and the government. And then, it gets really... It doesn't take too long for people to be like, okay, it's just
throw in the towel.
Not this year.
Yep. We'll kick that bucket just a little bit further down the road.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, the sad thing is I really don't think you need much to be able to service your clients from a tech perspective. I mean, I know there's several agencies that are using just like Agency Zoom and like NowCert or stuff like that are
pretty basic stuff.
Yeah, I mean they're great systems, but they're just simple. Mm-hmm. They don't need a ton.
Yep.
And I think that's the key is a lot of these are really boiling it down to the basics of what we actually need to do.
Yep.
We don't need to manually attach every email because that can just be done by the system.
Yep.
It's just crazy. But I think it's good to see, there's a term like David Carruthers uses, Ryan Hanley and all those, but built for agents by agents. And it's just launched. It's Pharaoh. It's all of us looking at it and going, we're just pissed off enough at what's out there that we can allocate some resources and just go build something that works.
Yep.
And then you get out and you talk to people and they're like, hey, we need that too. And you're like, well, shoot, let's go talk to a bunch of people about it.
Well, I think what's interesting about your comment there is, we call, use the term legacy systems, right, to describe it, but you also have to think of it in terms of legacy entities, legacy brokerages, right? Yeah. And brokerages have been doing it the same way for a lot of years, right? Like you said, even though when agency management systems came into play in the early 80s, mid 80s, I think, somewhere around there, and they digitized those processes, but the processes never really changed. It was
totally
same thing since that time. And so when you're talking about tech and change, that's scary, that's daunting too for a brokerage because it's like, well, we've always done it this way. Change is always scary. But it's kind of like that turning that Titanic in a pool, right? Like legacy brokerages are, we're the Titanic and we want to figure out how to get digitized and have a digital marketing, capacity and all those things, but it's really hard to turn it. And so what's interesting is you look at some of the newer agencies who have jumped on to the country's top 100 list like seemingly overnight. A lot of them are brand new. They actually built the agency on a digital chassis versus trying to turn that Titanic in the pool. And so I think it's just an interesting case study to look at to say, okay, man, their growth is skyrocketing. What facilitates that? Are they doing everything the same way it's always been done, or have they really kind of turned the industry on its ear and figured out a way to be more efficient, more compelling, more dynamic with their clients and all those things, right? So it's a big hairy problem to solve and unwind, if you will, but it's fun and there's a problem there. Everybody acknowledges there's a problem.
That's what's fun is there's an unlimited amount of problems to solve. Yeah. What happened to the Titanic, Chris?
Well, it ended up sinking.
Okay.
It didn't turn fast.
I think that's what keeps us motivated. We talk about this a ton. There's a couple things I wanted to pick your brain on. Customer experience is one of them, but then quickly before that, on the heels of what you were just saying, like Elliot and I have been chatting a lot about, scalability in this industry, and how do you really do it, without let's take agency acquisition off the table, and let's take hiring new producers off the table. Tell me how you're going to grow 350% next year.
It's a great question.
You can't do it.
You can't do it.
And even with the producer thing, that's like, we can go miles deep with this, but our industry's response has always been, we go find the next Chris, and we train him for 3 years, and we get him up and running, and then Chris is in a killer year.
Or if they don't, you fire him.
Yeah,
but
and then we're back to square one.
Yeah.
And which is a very real problem, right? I mean, there's a bunch of statistics out there. I don't know them off the top of my head, but of the washout of producers in the industry. But even you're successful, you're up and running in a good year, you're putting on 150,000 of revenue, right?
It's a great year.
Yeah, and so each person doing a great year is building the company by 150 grand a year. It's just, you can grow well, you can grow a business, in the double digits doing that, but you're not going to be able to scale. You're not going to be able to do, everybody's kind of shitting on lemonade right now, which we can too if we want. But in reality, they're scaling like hell.
Yeah,
right. And they started with one line and they're starting to branch out. I mean, they're coming and they're getting it figured out. They hit some roadblocks to start, but they're going to get it figured out. And it's things like that you look at where they're at and they've scaled like crazy.
Yep.
So anyways, I totally derailed you on that, but we get passionate about it because it's like we have to figure this out as an industry if we want to keep up with the growth.
Well, and I think where my head goes to your comment, how do you do it, right?
Pessimistic Elliot said it's impossible, but it's
no,
not.
I think whoa. No words in my mouth. Damn it! This is what I deal with.
So I'm the eternal optimist. I like to a fault. I'm an optimist. But what's interesting is you look at the industry overall, right? And you step back and you think, okay, how are we going to grow? How are we going to grow with all these dynamics, insurtechs, lemonades, all these different things that are going on out there? And to me, the agencies I've been out and discussing things with, it's that digital capture of the business, right? It's that like small commercial, right? How do we automate those processes where we can actually make money on those low premium, low revenue accounts, but still service them efficiently and well and get them in the door? And it seems like a lot of those, the agencies I'm talking to, is they actually are light years ahead of a lot of agencies in terms of actually pulling business in, like a lot of companies, non-insurance risk management, are digitally, right? How do we capture business traffic flow from the site and Google ads and all these different things? Because think about it, if you're starting a business and you don't happen to know one of us dorks who's selling insurance, where are you going to go? You're like, I'm going to go online and type in
the Google,
how do I find insurance, right? So it's just interesting to think about, like, helping brokerages plan for that, because to your point, where my head goes is perpetuation, right? I know you guys probably saw GTA just got purchased here recently, and
another one bites the dust.
And another one bites, and it just keeps, every day you wake up, another one and another one.
It's getting fun.
Yeah. Well, it's fun because
it's opportunity.
It's opportunity, I think, for
because what you're talking, you're talking about small accounts and creating a value prop around that, and every agency in Nebraska, other than two big, the players in the state, at least, like, other than two, are not focused on anything under 10 grand in revenue right now. Like, it's literally sitting there on a platter.
Yes.
For you to just go take.
Yep.
But yet people are struggling to look back at their models going, well, but how in the hell are we going to make it profitable? Which is mind-blowing. Oh, maybe a great segue, though, to client experience. I want to pick your brain on this because a lot of it goes back to that, right? If you're going to differentiate yourself, it's not just what happens in your four walls. It's how you communicate to the client, what you deliver, how you show value, blah, 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 blah. Has anyone in the insurance industry figured out the ideal client experience?
Man, I don't think so. I think it's a tough thing because clients are very diverse in what they actually want, right? You guys have clients who text you, call you. They want very interactive. You have others who, to some degree don't want to hear from you unless, you got good news. And it's across that spectrum. And then you think about large commercial, small commercial, employee benefits, that whole spectrum of, hey, what does a client actually want? And I think to a degree, the industry has done a really poor job of training clients on what they should want or expect from us, right? Because we've kind of told them, here's what you should expect. And I think it's been uncommon.
Cheaper price.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, right? Like
I want to
that's
save 15%.
Yeah.
I only want to spend 15%.
Which has nothing to do with an experience, but anyway.
but that's the point, right? Like we've kind of trained them to be price hawks, right? Like that's at the end of the day, that's kind of on us and on insurance companies.
I was going to say, we got to share the blame a little bit.
Yeah, totally agree. A lot of it. Because at the end of the day, that's the fun part about projects like we're talking about is it's messaging, it's education, all that comes with it, right? Hey, actually helping you spend less time on the P's and Q's and automating some of that allows you, client, to focus on managing risk, right? What can we do to help you with safety and loss control and all those things? And I think that's where it's interesting to step back and say, like, hey, as the industry, you've actually done a good job of understanding a client's wants or expectations and meeting them there and providing it. But I think part of it is because brokerages, carriers, we're so bogged down on pushing paper, it's hard to step back from the, just kind of the tasks at hand and actually go meet them where they're at and figure out what their need or want is. And that's where the human element comes into play and why clients still value an advisor, right? Because a computer can't meet them where they're at.
That's where the time should be spent.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's where the tech comes in and is valuable. Taking the other stuff off the plate to allow you to spend time with the client. And we've referenced this before, but one of Dan Allison's episodes, he talked about a way to, he calls it feedback marketing, but it's a way to get that feedback from your clients, talk to them about referrals, and then make sure they know everything that you can do for them, which are three very important things, but that should be a separate meeting. Don't do it at the end of an insurance renewal or anything because you're not going to get through it correctly, But I think that's what we end up. The focus is all the way around insurance always, not necessarily around that experience. What are the most important things that the client should be doing, right? And I just think it goes back to our industry just has to spend the right amount of time thinking about that. And we never really have. And I don't know what the reason for that is. I think insurance carriers control a lot of the process, right? We're reliant on them to get us the pricing, the terms on their timelines, as much as we want to push them. And so I think some of that is dictated to us, and so we're responding to it. We just don't probably put enough time into, it from the client's perspective, I guess. And I mean, who knows? But I think it's Charles Speck maybe on his podcast, but and I'm probably going to butcher it a little bit, but clients want basically three things, right, when it comes to insurance. They want the right coverage, obviously. That's why they buy it. They don't want to pay more than they have to. I mean, some people would say cheaper price, but at the end of the day, they're fine with paying a fair price.
Value oriented.
And then at the end of the day, they want you to save them time. They want to be time efficient. They're busy. And if you can solve those three things for clients, you're going to win a lot of business. You're going to keep it. But to me, out of that, I hear client experience. Because all those three things are facilitated through a good client experience. Again, you don't have to go get the cheapest price, but if the clients are satisfied with the price you're providing for the value you're providing, no brainer. So, well, we covered a lot of ground. I think we're getting a signal from Big Al, but that was fun, man.
It was great.
We'll have to.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. You guys are doing great work. Keep doing it, man. It's the only way change comes is talking about it, right? That's like with anything in life. You got to put it on the table and start dissecting it. So the work you guys do with the podcast is great. Really appreciate what you guys are doing there.
Yeah, you too, man. We'll have to have you back on and keep an update on what's going on.
Would love to do that.
All right, dude.
Take care.
See you next time.
See ya.
Thank you for tuning in to Getting Past the Premium. We are excited to continue breaking down barriers and finding solutions together. If If you would like to reach out regarding anything you heard in today's episode, find links and contact info in the description. Until next time, have a great day, and let's continue getting past the premium.